Okay, I'm calling to order the regular meeting of the Finance and Administration Committee of the Board of Directors for Marin Water. It is August 26, 2021, and our first order of business is to call the roll.
Good morning, Director Bragman,
Here.
Director Gibson,
Here.
Director Schmidt,
Here.
Director Russell,
Here.
and Chair Kohler.
Here. Okay, I'm now looking for a motion to adopt the agenda.
Move approval of the agenda.
Second.
Do we have any public comment on the agenda, Terry?
We do not.
Okay, do we have any board comment on the agenda? Okay,
We do not. Oh,
let's call the vote.
Director Bragman,
Aye.
Director Gibson,
Aye.
Director Schmidt,
Aye.
Director Russell,
Aye.
Chair Kohler.
Hi. Okay, this is now the time for any public comment on any item that is not on the agenda. Do we have any comments, Terry?
Yes, Laura Ethel, please. Go ahead, Miss Ethel.
Yes, I object to the having these board meetings during the business day when most of the public cannot participate. I happen to have a schedule that's open this morning, but on another day, I wouldn't be able to participate either. It just happens that I'm available today. Since this is listed as a board meeting, you can take significant action during this particular meeting without the public, or very much of it, being able to see what's going on and comment on it. This isn't right. It may not, or whether or not it's a technical violation of the Brown Act, it certainly is a violation of the spirit of the Brown Act, which encourages an agency like this to do its business in front of the public and permit the public to comment on what's going on. I object to this. I think that it also limits who can run for the board. And as you know, 3 of the members of this board are up for re-election in the upcoming election. So I would ask that you discontinue having regular board meetings during the business day. If you want to have a committee meeting and have that committee report to the board, that's how it's usually done anyway. And you wouldn't then be able to take the kind of significant steps that you can now take in a meeting like this. Thank you.
Thank you. We do not have any further speakers or comments. Oh, Mr. Roberts, I apologize. Mr. Roberts?
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I have a couple of questions. They're related. Is there any discussion or planning at all by this district or regionally to resurrect the proposed project for a regional desal plant somewhere up in the Antioch area? And if that's the case, are you in support of that? Because that is an alternative that needs to be considered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Roger, I think, as you know, we can't engage on items that are not agendized, but I believe that that is a conversation that is going on, and I encourage you to come to the next regular board meeting for the next drought update where that will be discussed. And also, if I could ask staff to perhaps follow up with Mr. Rogers prior to that meeting.
There are no further comments.
Okay. Okay, that brings us to our first agenda item, which is to approve the minutes of the last special meeting of this committee of June. Do I have a motion? I'm sorry, was there a second?
Second.
Thanks. Do we have any public comment on this item?
I believe we do. Let me just double check. Mr. Roberts, did you have a comment on the minutes?
No, and my hand is down.
Okay, sorry,
Okay.
thank you.
Let's call the vote.
Director Gibson,
Aye.
Director Bragman, I'm sorry,
Aye.
Director Schmidt,
Aye.
Director Russell,
Aye.
and Chair Kohler.
Aye. That brings us to item 2, considerations in converting from bi-monthly to monthly customer billing. This is an information item only. There's no action today.
Good morning, Chair Kohler and members of the board. Go ahead and share my screen here. And can all of you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so this is a continuation of a information item that we brought on June 24th. So we're coming back to discuss this again, and we are just looking for some board input on this. So just a brief history, as we mentioned before, we had examined going to monthly billing in 2017, but it wasn't really true monthly billing. We were at that time looking at splitting the bi-monthly bills in two, but we were not adding additional meter reading to that process. So we were at that time considering it would take about 6 weeks for conversion at a one-time cost of about $340,000. And then we had an annual ongoing cost of about $650,000 for that. And that project was abandoned. So looking at some of our comparator agencies, and we were looking at what the frequency is of the billing and whether or not they're on AMI. The first one we looked to was North Marin Water, and they are on bi-monthly billing, and they do have AMI. The board did have some questions last time as to why they were on the bi-monthly, and I reached out to their CFO on that, and it was just a matter of cost. They didn't want to pay the additional cost of producing monthly bills and the postage associated with that. So that's why they didn't go to monthly. East Bay Mud is on bi-monthly, and they're in a pilot program on AMI. Alameda County Water is bi-monthly and in the process of installing AMI. Petaluma is on monthly billing. They do have AMI, but that asterisk there, they have drive-by reads required. And then Cotati's on bi-monthly, they do have AMI. And the San Francisco Public Utility Commission is monthly billing, and they do have AMI. And then we gave the board some key statistics on the district. So total customer accounts is about 61,000. We have total annual invoices of 360,000. Online payments, we have about 123,000 of those, the 15 geographic zones, and we do 368 routes that we read. Leak adjustments, we look back at calendar year 2020. We had about 1,500 leak adjustments that we processed at an average of a little over 1,000 per leak adjustment. We currently have 5,000 AMI meters installed, and the average bill for our residential customer on a bi-monthly basis is $235. And then we looked at what the timing considerations were, very similar to what we had last time. We expected the time to complete. I think, fairly optimistic. It's 6 months. We have to update our SAP system. That's really kind of the long pole in the tent there. That'd be the most time consuming. And then we'd have some additional personnel. We'd have to hire additional meter readers, obviously, for increased meter reading. So we'd have some time for recruitment and training for those people, but that recruitment and training timeline is going to overlap a bit. So that's not 6 months total. That'll probably be shorter than 6 months total. And then we'd have to do some route conversion in SAP for our reading routes. And then just to keep in mind, we're in the process of converting our manual handhelds for meter reading, and that upgrade's expected to be finished in December, January timeframe. So the projected cost, we had ongoing and one-time costs. So the one-time costs there were $420,000. Part of that was to purchase the additional trucks that we need for the additional meter readers. And then those upgrades to SAP would be about $300,000. So a little over $400,000 one-time cost. And then we have the ongoing cost, and those are to hire additional meter readers, add personnel in customer service that we need for the bill processing, and then invoice and postage just basically double. So that would take us up to about $1.36 million in ongoing costs. Opportunities and challenge. I think one of the things that's definite opportunity here is visibility, especially in this time of drought. their customers would be more easily able to see what was going on with their water usage if they had monthly billing. And then on our side, on the district side, it would also allow us to see things more quickly, like what the usage was by our customers and if there were potential leaks out there. One of the things that's been brought up is it could smooth the revenue stream. And we kind of looked at that. I think the revenue stream might actually stay very, very similar to what it is. Reason being, when we go to monthly billing, if you think about it, we would just be increasing the number of meter reads we would do. So, and then we'd be reducing the amount of the average bill. So, in simple math, whereas right now we may be processing bi-monthly bills, 100 of them per day, and the average bill is 200. We said $235, but let's call it $200. Now we'd be going to processing 200 bills a day, but the average would be $100. So really mathematically, the revenue stream would probably, if there were any difference, it would probably be unnoticeable. And then challenges, as we pointed out on the previous slide, obviously there's an expense associated with this, both one-time and ongoing. Competing for project focus. So right now we have, the people that we would need to upgrade BSA, to upgrade SAP. Some of our personnel are involved in other projects, and some of those projects are directly related to the drought. So there's some competition for resources within the district. And then it would be conducted in concert with that upgrade of the handhelds that we talked about. So last time, one of the questions that was asked was what the difference would be in interest earned. So this is kind of an academic look at it. So quite simply what we did here is we took the annual revenue of $85.9 million, and then we assumed our interest. Right now we're getting 0.22% on WAVE, 22 basis points, very low interest rate environment, obviously. And we looked at what would happen. So here, on top here, you see we took that 85.9 million and we assumed that we're getting that every 2 months. And if we assume that at 0.22%, we get $94,000 in interest over the year. And then if we take that and we divide it out more evenly on the monthly billing cycle, and we look at the difference, we have 102,000 there. So you got about an $8,000 difference in interest over the year. Which intuitively is about right. If you look at our investment report for today, quarterly, I think we're earning about $70,000. So you're not going to have a tremendous effect on the interest earnings. And again, a little bit artificial here because as we kind of thought this through, I'm not sure that the cash inflows, the revenue inflows would really change all that much. We'd just be doing an increased number of billing for smaller amounts, so that kind of makes sense. And then another discussion by the finance committee last time was on the AMI system, and so Crystal Yesman is on the call with us and was kind enough to provide a slide on that. It's in work right now. So currently we're on that 2021 process here, the implementation plan. We're about to issue an RFP for a consultant that's going to help us with that implementation plan. They may also help on contract development and construction integration, but we'll see. So right now in 2022 is about when we'd have to put this into the CIP and start budgeting for that. That's when we might start pre-purchasing materials for the installation. And the project overall is expected, the estimate is to be about $20 million. So this is one of those projects that would probably be a prime candidate for debt financing. So if we took that $20 million and we assume we're going to get a long-term benefit from this system, we could finance that over 30 years, about $1 million per year. So that's where we are on AMI right now. And that's my presentation. I'm joined by Colleen Kanzakis on the phone, the customer service rep. We also have Craig Lordson's on the phone. He's the meter ops supervisor, and Crystal Yesman's on also. So between us, hopefully we can field any questions that the committee has.
So Chuck, if I could quickly just chime in for a moment. So this is the second time we're coming back, hopefully responded to some issues and questions that the board has. And today we're looking for direction if the board has it in terms of one would be, for now, we don't proceed. The other would be to come back with requests to fills, and the other elements that would be moving forward in an implementation mode on this. So with that, hand it back over to the board.
Thanks, Ben. And thanks, Chuck, for that very helpful presentation. I want to go first to the board. Other board comments on this?
No.
I have some.
Okay.
The clear thing, and I don't know if this is exactly the place to bring this up, but obviously on that interest rate or interest accrued assessment, the key factor there would be to get that 0.22 raised more than this difference. Is there any possibility of doing that?
Director Russell, there's always a possibility. So, we have a lot of restrictions by the state code on our investments. So, we're limited in the horizon we can invest in. We can't invest in things like equities that would get us, real return. So
No, but
really,
like a CD, can you do a CD?
we can do CDs, but again, a CD probably is not going to do any better than the 22 basis points that you're getting from WAIF right now.
Okay. I don't understand the delay in the AMI serpentine chart there. It says the report was done in 2020. I don't recall the conclusions of the report with respect to whether they wanted to stick with using the cell phones or go to Wi-Fi. But I can't see why it's taking us this long. If San Francisco has it, Petaluma has it, North Marin has it, et cetera, why is it taking us so long to get around to this decision? And to that end, I found the cost comments quite interesting. I don't know if you've seen them or not, but they were submitted with our board packet. Cost was perfectly willing to go along with an expenditure of $12 million for Flume devices without a blink of an eye. Just said, just put one on every device paid for by the district. That little cost task is $12 million. And I find that kind of interesting. I hope they'll be as supportive when we get to AMI, but I think it's important to recognize we're not doing a very good job of communicating to the public what we are doing. I see many comments about when are you going to do this and why aren't you doing it? Well, we are doing it, and we just need to make it clear to everyone that it's in the process of being done. But I still have the question of why is it taking so long to get to a drop the hammer on AMI?
Yeah, so Director Russell, I can take that. I'd say, in my view, where following board direction and pivoting from the piloting mode we've been in to moving full speed on AMI implementation. So where we are is bringing on a contract to support us, to work with the board on the final decision-making of the architecture, and in parallel with that effort, supporting us on developing an RFP that'll hit the streets for the large implementation aspect. Ideally, selecting the right support at this stage where we would get ongoing technical support through implementation. So we have heard the board's interest and direction on moving forward with AMI, and that is where we are and what we're doing.
Okay, and I would be willing, from my end at least, to table this discussion of monthly billing until the AMI is implemented. I think it's probably, and Chuck is correct here, we're probably creating work that doesn't necessarily need to be done now in the middle of the drought issues when we have people doing a lot of other things. So I would be comfortable in going in that direction. I still don't believe the cost assessment. For instance, the purchase of 4 new trucks. As I have said previously, when I did this work as a water meter reader for LA Water and Power, a much larger facility, we used our own vehicles. I think that the second approach, if that's not interesting to the district, then just work the new meter readers on a second shift. And hopefully if we put the AMI in place, you don't need the new meter readers, but I think we need to be a little more creative instead of just plowing all the numbers we can think of into this to discourage moving forward. At least that's my interpretation of it.
Other board comments, Larry, the other Larry. You're muted. Larry, we can't hear you.
Maybe. There we go. Sorry.
There you go.
Yeah, so obviously the interest now is to get as much information as we can to our residents. So that is a very important aspect of our service and one that, you know, we need to step up. This has come up before, the issue of monthly billing. And I think it's pretty clear that the money would be better spent trying to implement AMI. And I join in Director Russell's frustration with the delay. Although I understand staff is completely really limited bandwidth and it is a big project. I think we should get that RFP out so that we can start implementing and get it going. I think it'll have a lot of benefits. I would caution, you know, when PG&E rolled out smart meters in Fairfax, the RF radio frequency emissions was a big issue. Actually, our current system that we've got implemented, 5,000, that uses cell phone technology, circumvents that problem because it's a very short broadcast of information and does not create a mesh network like PG&E used. And then my final comment, and it's been a continuing one for actually years now, is under the finance code, state finance code, we can invest in what are called Ginnie Maes. And they are government-backed securities that pay about 10 times our current return on investment. So I've brought this up numerous times, you know, and I understand the hesitancy to change investment policy, but that is a vehicle that is available. And what I would recommend, or what I would propose, is that we set aside when we're in a little more stable position financially, probably after the drought, when we're not going to be relying on reserves, to consider setting aside sort of an investment account, you know, of a part of our reserves that we feel secure setting aside and putting them in a higher yield investment like Ginnie Maes, which are government backed. There really is no more secure investment for the district. So those are my comments.
And just to comment on that, Larry, I'm looking right now. It appears that the yield's at least 1.7% at this point in time on Ginnie Maes. Something like that.
You can do better. Okay. It
Better, yeah.
depends, you know. So, and the other thing about Ginnie Maes, not to get too far afield, is as people pay down their mortgages, these are mortgage-based investments. They do generate cash, which would not be tied up. So it's an interesting vehicle for us to consider, and one I've been recommending for a long time. But again, you know, right now our financial picture is so not questionable, but you know, we need to keep our reserves at the ready. So I think it's a conversation we can put off for a while.
Okay.
Agree. One more comment, Cynthia. Excuse me, but are we considering having vendor financing? Because that is an option with these AMIs. So it's something, it can't hurt to ask what their cost of financing is in the RFP, it seems to me.
Yeah, we'll incorporate that as we bring to the board the work with the consultant as we develop the details of the RFP.
Okay, any other board comments on this item? Because I think staff is looking for some direction here. So I think we're hearing from Larry, the two Larrys, that they're interested in maybe putting off the idea of going to monthly billing as we gear up on AMI. Jack and Monty, do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I just have a quick comment here. For a long time, I've had people saying that we should be on monthly billing, and it fits more appropriately into household budgets and so forth. So there's benefits. But I agree with Larry Russell that it's, given all of the things we have going on now, it's the more immediate consequences, the better and more accurate and the more quickly we get the reading of how much water people are using. So a notching up the speed that we can get to AMI is much more important. That essentially would be, I'm all for monthly billing. I think we should be doing it, but I understand there's a lot of things on the table right now. We got to pick the priorities.
I'll just simply say, so to save time, I agree with the comments that are being presented in terms of holding off on moving to bi-monthly or to monthly, given our other priorities, other needs, and a focus on getting AMI implemented as quickly as possible so that it's more cost effective to move to a monthly billing in the nearest future.
Great, and that's where I am as well. So no need to reiterate. I think Ben and Chuck, you've got some board consensus there. In keeping with our new protocol, let's make sure that that's captured in the minutes. Before we move on, I do want to go to public comment.
I have one more
could I
comment.
ask-
Cynthia. Yeah, go ahead, Larry.
I was just going to say on the AMI proposal, whether there's a AMI technology that would allow our customers to get the information in real time or close to real time.
Yeah, they get it now.
So,
All the AMI, you'll get it now.
Yeah.
It's similar to the flume, maybe even more robust in terms of real-time information, historical data, and full access on an
Yeah,
app on your
so
phone.
to me, on, if there's that kind of access to data, whether it's worth spending another $500,000 or so on monthly billing, again, I'm pretty skeptical. But anyway, the AMI proposal, the AMI concept is obviously, I think, where we need to go. So thanks a lot.
It seems to me that one of the things we could do here very easily, though, is to strongly, and I mean encourage people to use the online bill payment, to eliminate the bill, to eliminate the postage issues, to take that issue completely away. If we have to give a discount on the bill, give a discount on the bill equal to the cost of what it costs us to mail the bill, or half that cost or something. I think we're behind the curve here, and we need to get in front of the curve and get people going on doing online bill payment. And to that end, I know PG&E has a system, and we may or may not have it. I'm not quite sure. I don't recall. But you can pay your bill on a uniform amount per month on an annual basis. And then PG&E works something out to catch you up at the end of the billing period. So perhaps we could consider that or implement it so that people would be able to pay the same amount every month for their water bill through the whole year and not have to worry about changes in the bill and their budget.
Mhm.
Okay. Are we ready to go to public comment? Carrie, any
Yes.
public comments on this item?
Yes, I have two so far. Laura Epple, then Roger Roberts. Ms. Epple?
Thank you. I would encourage you to completely ignore the change from bi-monthly billing to monthly billing. I think it's not worth the cost. And please proceed with the smart metering option. That makes a lot more sense. Of course, you can finance it in a way that you haven't been financing other long-term projects. But this one makes the most sense. If you want an incentive for people to see what they're using and use that as a means of reducing their usage, the smart monitors are the way to go. And I would certainly encourage you to do that. I like the fact that the board is not proceeding at this point with bi-monthly, with the change to monthly billing, but I would encourage you not to do that at all. Thank you.
Thank you.
No.
Mr. Roberts?
AMI is a good idea.
Hmm.
And there are a lot of different financing options for that. And I'm not sure that the discussion has really talked about the financing options. And so you need to settle that before you proceed or as you proceed. Thank you.
Thanks, Roger.
And
Any other public comments, Terry?
there are
Okay.
none.
All right, Ben, I just want to make sure that you and Chuck feel like you've got the direction that you need from the board on this.
We do. Thank you, President Kohler.
Great. Okay, that brings us to the third item, which is review of the board handbook. This is also I guess this is an approval.
It's a
item,
review
but
and refer.
Reprove and refer, yeah, referring to the full board.
Exactly. Thank you, President Cole. Good morning, board. This is I'm going to run through a quick review here. Next slide, please. Sorry, Terry, can you go back one? Thank you. So the board handbook is a board policy that was adopted in February of this year. There was a request for a review in 6 months. So we're back in front of you now. Mainly that was generated because of the use of title provision. But we took the opportunity to look through the board handbook and see whether there were clarifications that would be appropriate at this point in time. And that's what we're bringing to you today. Next slide. So the first one is clarifying voting requirements pursuant to Water Code Section 71274. No ordinance, motion, or resolution of the board, so essentially any action item, should be passed without an affirmative majority of the board. So what does that mean? 3 members. A quorum could also be achieved via 3 members of the board. So that just means that if you were to have a minimum number for quorum, 3 members, you would also need a unanimous vote. We just wanted to make sure that was clear in the board handbook and consistent with the law. Next slide. We also wanted to clarify use of email accounts. This is simply to identify that where we already have a provision dealing with or speaking to the use of personal email accounts for district business. The same rules would apply to outside work email accounts. And that is that if you're using those for district business, they could be subject to Public Records Act review or requests, as well as discovery requests. So just adding that into the language. Next slide. We wanted to clarify contact with media. We already have the provision in here in front of you that board member communication with the media in which a district is subject matters discussed should clearly identify as an expression of the person writing the op-ed. We just wanted to make sure, or other communication, we wanted to clarify that that would, as I look at it, include any op-eds. There's been some interest in looking at that. This would just clarify the existing policy, which is also consistent with the use of title policy already in the board handbook. I'll note that I'm not suggesting or recommending any changes to that provision at this point. I've had no indication that there is a reason to reconsider it. This change to the contact with media provision would not preclude the use of op-eds as a communications tool from a district-wide standpoint. It would just, I think, require prior board reviews. There's not a specific provision or policy about that, but I think that that's consistent with the other provisions in the handbook. Next slide. We also had just a quick update of our organizational structure due to a few changes internally. You can see them here. Water conservation moved under engineering division. Operations division is over facilities maintenance and support, and watershed reports directly to the general manager. Next slide, please. And then lastly, just a couple of changes to reflect the new committee titles and scope. So Communications and Water Efficiency Committee, Finance and Administration Committee. Next slide. So with that, I'm recommending that the board review and refer the board handbook as revised to a regular bi-monthly board meeting for adoption as board policy. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Molly. Any board comments on this item? Larry?
Yeah, I think the proposal to clarify quorum is excellent. On the use of title, I still disagree with the policy. And to me, the distinction between commenting on a water district issue and a non-water district issue is a distinction without a difference. And as a matter of fact, in my opinion, it's more important for the board when commenting on district issues to make it more clear that it's a matter of personal opinion than on non-board issues. So I don't agree with the policy and, and a no vote on that aspect of the policy. What I think the policy should be is reflected in the proposal for a board comment about district issues. Identify that it is a matter of personal opinion and put in the disclaimer. So that's where I'm at on it. My position hasn't changed. And, those are my comments.
I like that comment, Larry. That's something I could support very easily. I like the modification you made about the board business. I think that's a very good qualifier. I have
I don't know that we're talking about a modification. I mean, I think that's fine, but I think Larry and I do continue to disagree about, I think it is very important that if you're commenting on issues outside of board business, that it not be suggested or that it be confusing to the public about whether or not it is the board that is being represented. So that's where I'm at. My position hasn't changed.
I have a question for us to think about regarding the handbook. I thought that the comment we had earlier was interesting, the one about doing board meetings in the daytime. Of course, these are committee meetings, not board meetings. But to that end, perhaps we should at least put in a verbal policy, written if possible, that says that unless there's an emergency, we don't take board actions during the committee meetings.
Good one.
And we may not want to tie our hands like that. I understand that. But Molly, maybe you could touch base on that.
I think that has been our practice.
I think that has been the practice.
It has been our practice, but I'm suggesting we make it into a more formal.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, but I think we should provide some leeway because there have been times when we have needed. And so I think emergency is a challenging word. So maybe at the risk of trying to wordsmith this right now, maybe we could ask Molly to put her creativity to work. There's something between it's because I think we should also make clear that has been in fact our regular practice. We very rarely make decisions at committee meetings. Yeah. So that's the whole point of referring things to the board. So but I just think limiting that to I just don't want to get into a tussle about what's an emergency. So
I like that. I like that. I like that.
The term we have used is not emergency. It's time sensitive matters.
Yeah,
right.
When the board has something that they need action on, and it's convenient.
Right.
I think that's excellent points, and I think I can craft something to incorporate that's consistent with our practice and that would be reflective of that practice in keeping with, only when time sensitive or urgent matters require action. Otherwise, the committee meetings were, as has been the case in my short tenure, that they are informational and for referral to a board. Regular.
Urgent, a much better word than emergency. It was just something I picked out of the blue there. But I have an idea. Perhaps we could put on the agenda for the committee meetings a banner at the beginning that says something like board action will be taken on such and such, items 2A or something like that, to highlight to folks that there will be a board action if it's needed in an urgent situation or something to that effect.
I'd hate to give the impression we're taking more board actions at meetings than necessary. I think maybe the flip would be, what do you think about doing it the reverse and just saying no board action? You know, these are informational items.
I'm all for it, all
Okay.
for it.
Okay. Any further board comments on the handbook?
Just a
President
comment
Cole.
on daytime meetings. I think, I didn't catch her name, but the commenter, public commenter about daytime meetings, I mean, part of the reason is to not impose on our employees to attend nighttime meetings, incur overtime, take away family time, personal time, that type of thing. So, I mean, I do understand sort of the mystification aspect of it, that, you know, we're deliberating during the daytime. I would point out County Marin does the same thing. So, you know, I think, you know, making it clear that we're limiting board action to urgency items is a good change, as suggested by Director Russell, and I would leave it to council to wordsmith the policy.
Actually, directors, if I may, I just want to point out that there's already some language in this section on committee meetings, page 10. Thanks, Jared, for the text. That it does indicate that district practice generally do not take final action on items during committee meetings unless district staff determines the urgency of the item requires immediate action that cannot be delayed. So I think we're already, we can probably pat ourselves on the back for having covered that issue. And if there's clarification, I'd be happy to consider questions or clarifications on it.
Maybe that should be part of the committee agenda, that
We can
disclaimer.
include language
you
on
know.
the
Yeah.
agenda to that effect.
Yeah, just put
We
it.
also do clearly identify on the agenda when there's an approval as opposed to an information or referral to the board. It's identified with respect to each item, but I don't think more information is a bad thing.
No, that's an easy one.
Yeah.
On
Okay. I'm
the
sorry, go ahead.
comment that we received, I think it was driven by the fact that because of the Brown Act, we have to label our committee meetings also to allow, we have to label them as board meetings in order to allow more than 2 board members to show up. So they're labeled board committee and board meetings. And that's a little misleading, but of course, that's what we have to do. So, you know,
Yeah.
I don't
That
know
is
a way to
correct.
clarify that, but, you know.
Okay, just in the interest of time, since it's already 10:15, do we have any public comment on this item?
There are none.
Okay, so let's move on to the monthly financial update.
Okay, this is the monthly financial update for July 2021. All right, so we'll start out with a look at our revenues. So just as we always tell the committee, if we take these revenues and straight line them over 12 months, we'd be a little over 8% of the fiscal year if we were right on. So you see actual to budget on the water revenues, $5.6 million, we're 6.6%, a little behind on budget as you would expect. And then the other revenues are things like rents, grants, interest earnings that we have. That's about $200,000 or 6.8% of annual revenues. Fire flow fees are only $100,000. And again, fire flow fees come in for the most part biannually with the property tax remittances. So we wouldn't expect to see those until January and April. And then our capital revenues, primarily CMF, coming in at $1.1 million, or 4.8% of budgeted revenues. And then we look at how we look in the first month of the new fiscal year. So you can see that the water sales there compared to budget are quite a bit behind. The service charge and the watershed fee, those fixed components of the revenues are pretty much tracking. They're a little bit behind, but you can see the water sales are way off of budget. And then if you go to your attachments, I think in attachment 1, you actually have actuals for the previous years. And if you look at those actuals for the water seals only, not those fixed components, you're going to see a pretty substantial drop compared to last year of 25%. So again, when we came to the board in the past several months with the finance committee meetings, we could not see the effects of conservation in the numbers. Now, obviously, we are definitely starting to see those effects of conservation show up in these numbers. So we have 1 month under our belt with the water sales comparison for the new fiscal year, getting through that first month. And again, you can see there in that blue line there, which is July 22 compared to the red line there, which is July 21. And you can see that precipitous drop there. That's about an 18% drop. But again, that's all of the water sales, including the fixed charges. So that kind of dampens out just that large 25% drop that you see just in the commodity charge. It's a pretty big drop there for July. And then this represents a change from the way we've showed the board or the committee this information in the past. At the June 24th committee meeting, the committee had asked that we convert this to acre feet. So that's what we've done here. We used to show it in CCF, so the numbers are a bit different. In the slides that we presented online last night, we had a decimal place in here. So this slide merely takes that out. There really wasn't any purpose in saving space on this like we thought there would be. So you can kind of see how we look. On all of the categories, almost across the board, we're down. Single family with acre feet is down by 296 compared to July of last year. You can see all these other categories, other than commercial and industrial, are down. And commercial industrial might be one of those metrics that's got a lot of noise in it because we're comparing to last year when they were obviously having effects from COVID. So, it's uncertain how much of that, what we're comparing to there, I guess, when we look back at July 2020. So some of that business may have actually improved a bit, and that may be why you see a little bit of increase in the acre feet usage there. But overall, down about 15% there, 380 acre feet compared to July of last year. And then we've looked at aging, and what you're kind of seeing here is what we've seen in the last few months. We're starting to see the delinquencies kind of work their way through the system. So now in the 30 through 90-day delinquencies, you're seeing those dollar amounts drop compared to the previous year. And then those older accounts are kind of working their way through the 180-day to 365-day delinquency. So we still have obviously a pretty marked increase in delinquencies, but again, I think those are starting to kind of work their way through the system here. And then we break down that 60 days past due number here, and we always kind of look at who that's affecting. So you can see single family residential 316,000 down a bit from last year. Duplexes down a little bit. Multi-units are up a little bit in the delinquencies. Business institutionals down, irrigation's down, and the others, recycle and fire line, are down. So overall, in just isolating that 60-day past due band, we're down by 28,000 compared to 400,000 last July. And then we always show the board the consumption tiers here, and you can see overall that we're falling again. This has also been converted to acre feet. So, as we always show you, most of our usage is there in tier 1 and tier 2. And you can just see kind of how those different tiers react over time. Fiscal year 16 there, you're looking, I think, at the tail end of the last drought. So it's kind of a comparable year to the current year. And you can see we kind of had the same patterns as you've seen in the past. And then we show you the AMI data, and again, converted to hundreds of acre feet here. And you can see for July, there we've got in these 1,200 meters that we've got in Tiburon Belvedere, see a really precipitous drop off in July. That's 25% drop from July of the previous year. And as I talked about earlier, in some of the data that we've seen before, it took a while for the conservation efforts to kind of show up in our data, but you can see after April, they start falling off. And this is, real-time data and not trailing like like the previous slides where we're basing that on our billed revenues. And a smaller sample size here for institutional and business meters throughout the district, 82 meters. And again, you see the same, the same kind of fall off there with those institutional meter and business meters in July. Got about a 14% fall off compared to the previous year in institutional business meters. And then expenditures, again, just keeping in mind if we're tracking evenly, we do 8.3%. So personnel services, we're a bit behind at 6.4%. The maintenance and operating expense, that one's a little bit ahead, but there's a couple things that are driving that. So you can remember in our discussion about the insurance that went up pretty substantially over what we'd even provided for in the budget. Kind of surprised us a little bit there. And then we have a lot of things that go out. We also have some increase in conservation spending that was unbudgeted. So, it's not unexpected to see that our maintenance and operating expenses actually are going up over what we would expect in the budget. Financing costs, we pay our large bonds biannually, but we just amortize those over 12 months. So you're always going to be right on with budget on those. We just smooth those out over the time period. Capital allocation, that's primarily those labor costs that we allocate to capital projects. That's right about on budget at 7.5%. So total operating expenses, we're about 8% of budget. Again, when we look at that in total, right about where we expect to be. Fire flow projects, we spent $200,000, and district projects for CIP, we spent $1 million, about 6.5%. And again, with a lot of those capital spending projects, you're looking at timing issues there. So those will catch up during the year, we would expect. And then we found it's helpful to add in the capital encumbrances that we have, and that gives you a little bit of a more real picture of what we're spending there. So if you add that in total, we're 13.1% of budget. And a lot of that comes from the capital encumbrances. So we've got $6.9 million in capital encumbered. A lot of that is for projects like the emergency generator at the San Geronimo treatment plant. We've got some pipe replacement projects for fire flow and some heavy equipment purchases that we've made that are encumbered. So we just haven't actually expended the money, but we've encumbered it because we know those products are coming. And then ending fund balances. Restricted designated fund, that's things like workers' comp and general liability. It's right about where we would expect. The rate stabilization reserve fund, this is the first time that I've seen this actually go down, drop from 9.4 down to 7.9 million. That $1.5 million drop is for two components. First of all, we took $500,000 out of there and put that into contingency, and that's for spending on expenses related to conservation, so specifically marketing and conservation programs that were unbudgeted. And then we also put $1 million towards some CIP projects directly related to drought. One of those is the East Bay intertie. And then fire flow fund is remaining healthy at $3 million. Pension reserve fund remains at $2 million. And the capital fund is $20.6 million. And then you can see that our operating unrestricted fund, what we classically refer to as our reserves, has dropped from $28.9 million at the end of the fiscal year down to $22.1 million. Some of that is just timing of cash flow. So July is a pretty heavy month for us. We prepay the unfunded liability on our pension in order to get some interest savings on that. We also had our insurance payment that was due in July. And then we had debt service payments due in July too. So that's a lot of why you kind of see that drop in July in the operating unrestricted fund. And then our operating fund balance months in budget. We target 6 months. We're at 3. Debt service coverage is at 3. Outstanding bond debts, $139.3 million. And then other smaller debts, there's things like Las Colinas, those are 6.9 million. So total debt is at $146.2 million. And then we have continued to show the board the effects, financial effects from COVID since the inception of the event about a year and a half ago. We've expended about $590,000 on that. Most of that was due to deep spray of buildings, vehicles, and then additional sick leave that we had to pay for the CARES Act. So in summary, the revenues and expenditures for the most part are tracking with budget, as we showed you. Expenditures, because we're spending some additional money on conservation, are a little bit higher on the maintenance and operating side than we'd expect. Fund balances are declining a bit, and again, some of that's the expenditures that we made out of that of the stabilization reserve, and then some of that's due to the cash flows in July for those things we talked about. And COVID, at least from a financial impact for the district, is a relatively minor financial impact. And that is my report on July's finances.
Thanks, Chuck. It seems to me the main takeaway is that our conservation and outreach efforts are really succeeding and creating real challenges for us on the fiscal side. So
Yes,
we certainly know why all these drops are happening, and that's exactly what we wanted, but we obviously do have the fiscal challenge to deal with. So I just want to turn to board comments on this before we go to public comment.
I have a question about the, if you could go back a few slides to sales by CCF. It's.
Is this the one you're looking at?
It may not be in your stack, but it's in your report. So let me just go there. This is
yeah.
It's item 4, attachment 2. It's billed water consumption and CCFs, which shows a actual to actual reduction of 18.7%. And I'm wondering how that's reconciled with the advertised savings of 30%.
Yeah, so I don't know how it reconciles with the 30%, but what you're seeing there in the 18%, that's in CCF. So one of the reasons that you see a higher number when I showed you the dollar sales. So like here, when we said the actual to actual, if you look at that $3.9 million in actuals compared to the previous year, I said that was about a 25% fall just on the commodity. So that doesn't line up directly with the CCF because we also have the rate increases that were in there. So the dollars in the CCFs are going to be a little bit different.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's any discrepancy in your reporting, Chuck.
Oh.
I think the discrepancy is between actual CCFs and what we're telling the public we're actually saving.
Yeah, I think I can explain a good part of that. Chuck's numbers are based on actual billing. The reporting we're doing on a weekly basis is based on water production system-wide. So it's kind of a 2-month lag between the two, if that makes sense to you, Director Bragman.
I'll be waiting for the revised CCF numbers to see that, but that's a pretty big discrepancy, but we'll see. I mean,
well, what we can do and we should do is go back to our production numbers back on the same date that we have these numbers and ensure that they match up or that we understand why they don't. So we can go ahead and look into that at this point.
thanks a lot.
You do when you look at this AMI data, and I realize this is a very small sample size compared to 61,000 services, but here you do actually you see that 25%. That's actually a little bit over 25% drop. So these are real-time numbers, kind of align a little bit more with that 30%.
Yeah, that's a little reassuring, but anything you could do, Ben, to kind of look into that, I'd appreciate. Thanks.
I think it's especially reassuring because a large number of the lots are pretty big here.
Yeah.
In Tiburon Belvedere. So if they're able to cut that kind of numbers, then, you know, other people can be encouraged to reduce more too.
Yeah, well, that shows the benefit of AMI too, going back to our original discussion.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. Other board comments on Chuck's report? Okay, do we have any public comments on the report, Jeannie? I mean, not Jeannie, Terry.
I believe we do. Hold on, let me check. I think Roger Roberts. Mr. Roberts.
Yes, thank you. Just a matter of interest. If you achieve the 40% reduction in water conservation, what does that do to the district's reserves? And is that something that we need to make some plans for? Thank you.
I think the answer is yes, we absolutely are making plans for that. But Chuck, do you want to respond to that more specifically?
Good question.
Yeah, we are starting to study that. If we do hit the 40% conservation goal, and that requires you know, some expenditures on the marketing and conservation expense side too, that brings our balances down very quickly over 1 year. So I think when we modeled that, we came down to about $1 million left in reserves with that kind of a scenario.
And please, let's use the word when, not if.
There are no further comments.
Okay. I'm not seeing any further board comments, so that brings us to our final item of the day, which is the quarterly investment report for June.
And Chair Kohler, really not much to report on that. You have a staff report in your package. As usual, we just show you what the yield curve's looking like out here to 5-year, because that's the horizon of what we're allowed to invest in. LAIF right now, which is the preponderance of our portfolio. At the end of July, we were looking at 0.31 or 31 basis points that we were getting in LAIF. And then as I showed you in an earlier discussion, the more current LAIF rate is 22 basis points, so that's falling. Portfolio overall is earning about 24 basis points. And definitely heard your comments on alternative investments. We'll continue to take a look at that. Those actually might be something that's that, you know, might be more beneficial going forward. When we've looked at those in the past, they haven't been competitive within that 5-year horizon. And you know, when we're invested in LAIF, they actually have a portion of that invested in the government sponsored entities like Ginnie Mae. But definitely something we'll take a look at.
Do we have any influence? Go ahead, Larry.
No, I was just going to say, you know, I appreciate that and the openness to at least look into it. The Ginnie Mae's, you get a much better return if you deal directly and get Ginnie Mae's versus in a fund, you know.
Right.
So just it's just another aspect of the market that might be worth looking into when and if our reserves are in a position to set aside an investment portfolio.
And what I was about to say is, do we have any influence on LAIF to get them to look at a broader horizon like Ginnie Mae's to increase their return? Or can we at least knock on their door?
Yeah, I'd be lying to you, Director Russell, if I said I had any impact over LAIF.
Well, I operate on the basis of don't ask, don't get. So,
Yeah.
you know, I can't see how it hurts us to ask them. I mean, they may have a pat answer to it, they may not. But it seems to me it's worth asking, being we have a chunk of change there.
Yeah. Who is LAIF anyway, Chuck? What are they? Is it like a pension type fund or?
Fund. Yeah, it's a large state-run fund. It's almost every agency in the state invests with LAIF. They're by far the largest go-to for municipal entities.
Yeah. Worth looking into for sure.
Any other board comments on the investment update? Do we have any public comments on this item, Terry?
There are none.
Okay, we're at the end of our agenda. I just want to confirm, because it's a little unusual, we have an operations committee meeting at 9:30 on Monday, correct?
That is correct.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
Just making sure we're all on the same page. Okay, well, I think we're done. and
I have a quick question, Cynthia, sorry.
Sure.
Chuck and Ben, along with Roger's comment, what is our plan moving forward? We kind of threw the numbers out and that's the last we heard of it. Are you coming back with, you know, where we're going with the rates or penalties or whatever to
Yes.
deal with the reserves?
All future finance committee meetings will have a discussion, kind of a focused look at where we are on reserves and what the kind of real-time projections are based on the state of conservation and expenditures. So revenue and expenditures. So we'll be doing that along with, we are planning to come back to the board next month with considerations for an approach to penalties in terms of use of water.
And I would also like everyone that's listening to recall that up until the last 20 years or so, these reserves, which we call rate stabilization, have always been called drought reserves. That's the historical name for them. They're intended to be used during droughts for exactly this purpose. So, you know, the fact that we're using them is exactly what we should be doing to supplement our income during that period of time.
That's true, Larry, but I think also we need to be mindful that our unexpected significant needs could be more than drought. And, you know, we think of catastrophic wildfire and other things that could cause us to have very large unexpected expenses. And so I appreciate Roger Roberts asking that question, because it's really the health of our reserves is really a security net we need to, I know we're drawing on as we should be, as was intended, but we also need to know that this is, you know, this may not be the last year of drought. We also may experience some substantial wildfires or some other large costs that we need to be able to absorb. So it's a great question, and we need to definitely take some action to make sure we preserve a reserve for us.
Agree completely.
Yep. Okay. Any other business, Ben, or others that we need to do today, or are we adjourned?
Thank you all.
Okay. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Well,